What would you do if all you ever wanted in life was to study and it was forbidden?
It isn't forbidden.
But if it were?
It isn't.
What if there was some crazy law that said old men called Zardoz, or old men with brown eyes were forbidden to study? What would you do?
I'd study anyway.
Secretly?
If I had to, why?
That would be difficult, wouldn't it? Always hiding, afraid of being discovered.
Yes, but it's your secret.
Without Talmud, without studying, you couldn't live. Is that right?
That's right. But you don't...
I couldn't live without it either.
So?
So I studied. Secretly.
Yeah, you didn't. But you're babbling about it.
My name is Yentl.
That's your secret? Well, don't bug us. Let's see.
I'm not a yeshiva boy.
That's it. You're the chief rabbi of Lithuania. Am I warm?
I'm not any kind of boy.
Not the chief rabbi boy.
My name is Yentl. It's Yentl.
Yentl.
And a woman.
A woman.
A woman.
Now my secret. I'm the Tsar of Russia.
If you don't believe me, I'll prove it.
No, that's not true.
I'm not Yentl. I'm Yentl. I'm not a man. I'm a woman.
Stop it.
I'm a woman.
That's all. I don't like this. What kind of game is this?
It's not a game. Not anymore.
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Layer Kick. A Coen brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet. A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel. Alvin and the Chipmunks deserve another squeakquel. There's so many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update. But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Ever hear of the National Council of Young Men's Christian Association of the United States of America? No? Perhaps you're more familiar with its more common name, the YMCA, or simply, the Y. The first Y in the US was opened at the end of 1951 in Boston, Massachusetts by Captain Thomas Valentine Sullivan, an American sailor and missionary inspired by the original YMCA in London, England. Today, the Y consists of 10,000 branches with the aim to strengthen communities through youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. And according to Forbes magazine, it's one of the largest charitable nonprofits in the United States. The Y also has made its fair share of shoutouts in popular culture. Most famously, the Village People's Anthem remains a staple of parties and rallies, especially among the gay community. In 1987, Morrissey sings about enjoying a visit at the London YWCA, even going as far as asking if they have a vacancy for a back scrubber in an attempt to prolong his stay. But well before the Smiths or the Village People shouted out the Y, Irving Berlin penned a Great War review to boost soldier morale called Yip Yip Yap Hank, and it included a song called I Can Always Find a Little Sunshine in the YMCA. Irving Berlin was considered by many to have influenced American ideals. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Gerald Ford in 1997, and Walter Cronkite even said that Irving Berlin helped write the story of this country, capturing the best of who we are and the dreams that shape our lives. But Berlin wasn't originally from the United States. He was born Israel Berlin and was born in Siberia, though he was raised in a Russian shtetl in what is now known as Belarus. Shtetl is a Yiddish word meaning small village that consists primarily of Ashkenazi Jews. Shtetls were common in the Russian Empire, Poland, Austria, Romania, and Hungary. Since you're listening to this episode, you may be familiar with shtetls from their appearances in films like 1992's Europa Europa, 2002's The Pianist, or this episode's movie. Greetings, Starfighters. This is Ruined Childhoods. I'm John, joined as always by my brooder Dan, and on this episode we're talking about Yentl, the tale of an early 20th century Orthodox Jewish woman who, in order to follow her dreams and study the Talmud, must pose as a man, assume a new identity, and travel to a new shtetl in Poland where she can hang out with all the boys. Dan, would you rather have to turn down an intimate night with Amy Irving or go skinny dipping with Mandy Patinkin?
Ooh, skinny dipping with Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah. And anyway,
anyway.
No. Okay, fine. I'll say it. No, we will not create the sword fight from The Princess Bride. Recreate it.
Yeah. I mean,
no.
Clearly the thought would have crossed your mind. That was like an instant thought that you had.
Like, is he gonna stand there and go do the Indigo Montoya? I've seen Mandy Patinkin do. I know I mentioned this on the Princess Bride episode. How could I not have? But when I saw Mandy Patinkin perform live at the State Theater in New Brunswick, New Jersey, back in 1996, he closed out the show by doing the "Hello, my name is Indigo Montoya." And it's legendary moment. Got to shake his hand afterwards.
Yeah.
So,
did he check to see if you had 6 fingers?
He was checking everyone. That's why he was doing the handshake line.
Christopher Guest is starting to sweat.
I know. That's why that tall guy looked familiar.
Isn't it so funny that Christopher Guest is that iconic role in that movie, yet it is so... it diverges so greatly from what he has become so well known for.
Right. It's kind of like, of all of the characters in The Princess Bride, no one really thinks about. I mean, I don't know that many people would. I mean, I don't think people really think about the actors in that movie.
Yeah.
And I also say this because I recently. So for those new to the podcast, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And to those who are regular listeners, know that I welcome back. First of all, shalom in the spirit of our film today. And so you know that I'm a high school teacher, and one of the courses I'm teaching this year is called American Literature and Composition. And because I was also recently, if you follow us on social media, you saw John posted it, that I was recently directing our high school's musical. If you're watching us, I'm wearing the t-shirt.
Yes, to our YouTube and Spotify viewers.
Yeah. So, directing a production of Chicago, and which, by the way, publicly thank you, John, for making the time to come and see.
It was great.
You were up here for,
it was awesome.
Work, so thank you. And, but I needed some class time. I needed some movie time, and I'm not one to just kind of say, hey, we're watching a movie, bring snacks and it's a fun movie day. So I kind of took some, did some surveys and ended up showing, the classes got to vote and narrow it down. And one class chose Forrest Gump. The other class chose Rocky IV. But the more relevant one here is Forrest Gump, because I was kind of waiting for someone to say hey, isn't that Princess Buttercup? And it's they've seen Princess Bride, and you're and I'm waiting for it, and I'm waiting for it. And and nobody mentioned it. And I just thought about it, and I'm I feel like that movie kind of exists in such a world where even if you know who the actors are in it, you don't necessarily think of them as those people. So you could watch all of the Christopher Guest, Waiting for Guffman, Spinal Tap, all that, and you might subconsciously make that connection. But I feel like a lot of viewers they don't want to. They want to. They're I want that character to be that character and not the actor.
Well, here's what I'll say about The Princess Bride, and we've covered this movie on the podcast before,
right?
But we haven't touched on this element, and I feel like what you are talking about might have something to do with the fact that the comedic roles are ones that people remember. Clearly people would notice Andre the Giant.
Right.
If they saw Andre the Giant, they'd be from Princess Bride, if they didn't know him from being Andre the Giant. And Wallace Shawn as well would be another one that people might, notice a little bit more. Now, Mandy Patinkin, his role is not very funny in an outward way, and he blends into that role. And so I don't think that somebody who's watching Avigdor would be like, is that Inigo Montoya, the Spaniard? Like, is that...
Well, I mean, and this is the other thing about the casting in that movie is that, like, Mandy Patinkin, the only other role that he played like this was Che Guevara on Broadway in Evita.
Right.
So, like...
Yeah, it's a complete departure.
And, like, he was great on Homeland, but, like, just very kind of, like, recognizable in his element there.
Right.
Kind of similar to Criminal Minds. He was
Criminal Minds, for such a long time. He did Criminal Minds.
So, kind of like that's kind of the milieu. And then you see, much like where Christopher Guest, it's Spinal Tap and Guffman, Best in Show, Mighty Wind, et cetera.
Right.
And you don't really expect him, or you don't really think of him, and it's kind of an afterthought that he's that character. And I feel like for a lot of you, and I mean, I think I'm just speaking from my own experience, and I'm not necessarily in the Princess Bride fan club. I think it's a great movie, but I don't watch it and I'm like, oh, he's doing that Christopher Guest thing. And
well, right, but to kind of go back to what I was saying before, it's the over-the-top comedic roles that people are going to, recognize people more for. And I will even say, including, I would even go as far as to say, like, Billy Crystal and Carol Kane. I could see somebody seeing Carol Kane in something and maybe thinking a little bit more about the Princess Bride.
Because also all of these actors, and Andre the Giant, most of all, but are kind of doing they're not really acting as much as like Mandy Patinkin is disappearing into the role of a Spaniard, a Spanish swashbuckler, or even Cary Elwes, who like he did Robin Hood, a few years after this, but the way that he kind of just blends into this world, and Robin Wright like blends into this world. Wallace Shawn is like, you watch, I mean, I think of Wallace Shawn's cameos on the show starring He Who Shall Not Be Named, who advertised the Jell-O pudding pops back in the day. The Cosby Show. But like even it's always Wallace. Well, I can't do a good Wallace Shawn, but it's Wallace Shawn doing that thing. And it's just that in Princess Bride, it kind of maximizes Wallace Shawn's Wallace Shawnness in the way that it did for Andre the Giant, that it took, the casting director, and I assume, Rob Reiner had some say in it, but saw in this, wrestling, personality, this attraction, saw the charisma and saw the ability to say like, all right, he could fit into this role. And, it's, like, would he have been Hagrid had they been casting Harry Potter and, had Andre been alive and healthy to, like, you save money on the special effects. Granted, Robbie Coltrane as Hagrid was brilliant.
No, absolutely. And Andre the Giant, I know we really need to steer it right back to Yentl, but Andre the Giant, that character doesn't have as much of a heavy lift. Figuratively, literally he does, but figuratively, the role is to be Andre the Giant. It's to be, a gigantic,
much
goofball.
like Miracle Max, it's kind of like Billy Crystal, kind of do your shtick here. So, I mean, anyway, we can kind of wrap it up on Princess Bride. I think anyway, speaking of disappearing into another identity, let's talk about Yentl.
Was this your first time watching Yentl, Dan?
It was not my first time watching Yentl, John. Was it yours?
It was my first time. I feel like I have avoided watching Yentl because, I'm not the like biggest Barbra Streisand fan, and it always felt like it was going to be a heavy lift.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for context, we were inundated with Barbra Streisand.
True.
As the Broadway album in particular, there was anywhere there was a CD or cassette player, either in our home, in the cars, or our father's office, there was a copy of the Broadway album. And yes, also the beginning of Defending Your Life has solidified that album in my mind. But like, I remember going everywhere and just being like, Dad, do you listen like the middle of the day, like, you know, between like your appointments and like, you know, going to, you know, do lawyer things, you're popping on the Broadway album, like what's like bit by bit putting it together, like, man.
Yeah. Well,
so anyway, the Barbra Streisand there was a heavy Barbra Streisand presence in our home growing up, which I know for me was kind of part of the, like, because also it was Yentl, and I have like vague memories because I was like 6 when Yentl came out. So there's like vague memories of course, like everyone in our family was going. It was because also, like, you know, this is not far from where our family is from.
Right.
And, you know, you mentioned Belarus earlier. We have, ancestors who are in the same region.
Right.
And,
so, okay, we're going to come back to that. So, I think that one of the reasons why I am initially very Streisand averse, not like Streisand averse, like the Welcome to the Streisand averse, but like I am averse to Streisand, is just because the music that she records doesn't really do anything for me in the sense that, like, you know, she doesn't really write music. Like, she has people write things for her at best, or it's Broadway songs.
We're going
to
get so many emails. ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com.
That's fine. And that's fine. So I think that there's just a big component of her music that really, I don't know, just didn't really call to me. And when I knew that we were doing Yentl, I was like, okay, I am going to do my homework. And I have seen Prince of Tides.
You buried yourself in the Streisand?
Okay. We have a lot to cover, Dan. We don't have that much time to goof around like that. But,
okay, so Prince of Tides. So
I was just going to say, like, I have seen Prince of Tides, and that's pretty much the extent of like Barbra Streisand movies that I've seen. So what I did is after watching Yentl, I watched What's Up, Doc, and I watched Funny Girl, and I watched. I kind of did the bookends. I did early Streisand, and then I did latter day Streisand with Meet the Fockers and The Guilt Trip. And
how was The Guilt Trip?
It's weird. It's weird because it's from like 2012, and it is so extremely 2012 because it's like there must have been so many like brand tie-ins that they had to do. And it's like all companies that went under like immediately after. Okay. It's like Kmart, and, you know, there's just like all these things. And it's like you see him using Bing. Not that Bing doesn't still exist, but it's like they were really pushing it right at that time. Like when it first came out.
Ask Jeeves? It
was very much Bing. And so it's weird. It's strange. And I enjoyed watching Barbra Streisand's performance with all of this kind of knowledge of her life. And a lot of that is because I read her book, Dan.
Barbara.
Her 1,000-page memoir.
Wow.
I listened to the audiobook, and I picked this up from the library, and yeah, she does narrate it herself.
Okay.
And I wanted to see the supplemental photos and everything.
Of course.
That is a heavy, heavy book. And Also, going back to our family, remembering that our mother was a very big Barbra Streisand fan, I called her and I asked her about, growing up and being introduced to the music of Barbra Streisand. And she was just like, and also her thoughts on Yentl, which we'll talk about more when we get into Yentl. But her thoughts about Barbra Streisand were kind of just like, oh yeah, she's great. Always liked her. But who really loves her is your Uncle Dennis.
Yes.
He is the biggest fan that I know. And so I was like, whoa, okay. Dennis, who was a guest on our Sister Act episode, as he was an extra in Sister Act. So that was maybe year one of the podcast.
Early.
And so I called him and we talked a lot about Funny Girl, which was Barbra Streisand's first movie, for which she won the Academy Award.
That was like, wasn't there a tie with Katharine Hepburn that year?
There was a tie with Katharine Hepburn. Yeah. Really fascinating.
Yeah.
So just a quick little side note, I find her arc as an actor really interesting, especially screen actor, because if you read or listen to her book, she talks a lot about her early life trying to get into acting, and she, had success very young, but it was like she was just dead set on it. And so for her first movie to win the Best Actress Academy Award, and then her last movie, The Guilt Trip, winning Worst Actress at the Razzies, I understand why she's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And to do The Guilt Trip must have been like, I think that they kind of were hounding her to do it for a while, and she finally agreed. But like, I get why she doesn't do this stuff anymore. It's just like all this for what? Because like allegedly they were, the studio was like really amping her up for the Guilt Trip to be like nominated for like a Golden Globe. And then they accidentally sent out a congratulatory message before the Golden Globe nominations were released. And then they announced them and she wasn't in it. And it was weird. So anyway, I talked to our uncle, and to go back to what you were saying, he spoke a lot about how when he saw Funny Girl, it really was the first time that he felt really, seen on screen. This being a Brooklyn Jewish woman, unapologetic, and she's playing Fanny Bryce, but she's still doing it very much as Barbra Streisand. And it was a performance that really caught his attention because he hadn't seen anything like that before. It was like, these are like the people in my family. These are the people that I'm surrounded by. And and so that was what really caught him on. And it turns out, Dan, our grandmother actually saw the Ziegfeld Follies and Fanny Bryce, like for real.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, and so when she, and this is being told through our uncle, but when she saw Funny Girl, both stage versions, not with Barbara, but stage versions and the movie, she was like, oh, well, Fanny Bryce wasn't really like that. And because she knew, because she saw Fanny Bryce.
Right.
Yeah. And and talking a little bit about Yentl, our great, is it our great grandmother or great? No, I guess our great grandmother. Yeah, our grandmother's mother, who did live in a shtetl. And there's photos of her, and she looks and dresses a lot like Amy Irving's character, Hadass. And it's like, they nailed it. And it makes sense that, somebody like, especially our uncle and our grandmother, who they pay very close attention to, our ancestors and our connection to, where our family comes from. And so, even though Yentl is only partially about that, it's mostly about this one person, but like the world that this is in, of course, is going to be very attention grabbing, even if people in our family maybe didn't see Yentl and get lost in the world of it because let's just say they didn't buy Barbra Streisand being a dude. 40-year-old Barbra Streisand being like a 20-year-old dude.
She looks like a Gelfling from the Dark Crystal.
She looks like Martin Short. She looks like Clifford in a school play about a shtetl.
Yes. Oh my goodness. No, I mean, all right. So, but I guess, so kind of coming back to what you were saying and what our uncle said, this was something that watching the movie, I thought about. And the last time I saw this movie, I think it was like a Temple youth group thing.
Okay.
So like we are definitely going back 30 plus years here. And, VHS, whatever, up in like the youth lounge.
Yeah.
So I'm watching this movie for all intents and purposes for the first time. Except that there were things that I was like, I remember this. So, but thinking about it and thinking about the representation and thinking about Barbra Streisand as a performer and you think about all of the performers who have, kind of either they have not necessarily embraced their Jewishness, not necessarily like hidden the fact that they're Jewish, but whether it's changing names or even having, reconstructive surgery to look less quote unquote Jewish. But that Barbra Streisand has never shied away and that she became a huge star, like we said, won the Oscar for Best Actress for her first film, was successful prior to that. Yeah. And after that became one of the biggest film and recording stars of the 1970s. In the 80s kind of, takes a break, but she's also like producing, she directs Yentl.
Yeah.
So, and in terms of like trailblazers and people, breaking new ground and setting kind of the path for other women, Barbra Streisand is, really right up there, really, kind of leading the charge and, famously not nominated for Best Director when she directed Prince of Tides, and the aforementioned Billy Crystal at the Academy Awards singing 7 nominations on the shelf. Did this film direct itself?
Didn't he recycle? Didn't he use that joke again for something else?
He might have
another
but
year.
He might have, but that Academy Awards was like the best ever. So
and Prince of Tides, I think, is a great movie.
Great movie. But again, like, she plays like her characters are Jewish.
Yeah.
I mean, The Mirror has two faces. Her character, I don't know.
Which I haven't seen and I'd really like to.
Oh, it's a really sweet movie. It's a really sweet movie. Jeff Bridges.
Just real quick. Behind me is a little bookshelf, and even just today I was like, oh, wait a second, I have this book here called Real Women that's been like at the top of my shelf, and I was like, what do they have to say about Barbra? And of course there's a section about Yentl, and it's funny because they spell Avigdor wrong the whole time. They just do Avador. Okay. But it's really they don't mention any of her other films. They really just cover Yentl, and they do like a little bit of I guess at this point, Yentl was the only film that she directed when this book was published.
I saw the book cover. I'm like, that looks pre-91.
Yeah, by Ali Acker. I never even considered that this would have been before some of her other films.
Prince of Tides. So anyway, speaking of Avigdor, shall I...
Please synopsize.
You said Avigdor, and I'm like, Avigdor Spartacus? So anyway, here's the story. While living in a Polish shtetl, a young woman named Yentl is determined to study the Talmud, despite a rule in the Orthodox Jewish faith that studying religion is for men and keeping the home is for women. But after her father passes away, Yentl leaves her village and assumes a new look, personality, and sex in order to follow her dreams. Now as Anshel, Yentl finds a group of like-minded scholars and is on the path to becoming a talented rabbi and must find new ways to continue living with her secret. But this becomes even more complicated when she meets and falls in love with her new best friend and study buddy Avigdor, who instantly considers Yentl a brother and confidant. The further along Yentl progresses in her studies, the more complicated her personal relationships become, resulting in her marriage to Avigdor's ex-fiancé Hadass just to keep him close. How long can Yentl commit to the bit? Only Zeit will zeg. As Yentl, we have Barbra Streisand. As Avigdor, we have Mandy Patinkin. As Hadass, we have Amy Irving.
Yeah, that's kind of the core group.
The big three. The big three in here.
Yeah, Dan, I meant to mention this. Right after I watched it, the first thing that I really thought about, and I thought about this, I guess, a little bit while I was watching it, but in a lot of stories, a lot of movies that focus on the Jewish experience, they typically focus on anti-Semitism, and this movie, that's not a factor. This is a completely insular story about the Jewish experience for, somebody who just wants to study and wants to be able to do what the men are able to do, and be free to do that.
And of course, to add some context here, she is raised by her father.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother has passed on, and so she's raised by her father. Her father is secretly teaching her,
right?
Because he doesn't, it's kind of, he doesn't know what else to do, and that's kind of, what he knows to do is pass on his knowledge.
Yeah.
And so that, so that kind of like drives, has driven her passion.
Yeah.
And, she's an avid learner. She's curious and she's passionate. So why shouldn't she?
Well, yeah. Oddly, the thought that I had was that, yes, this is not a movie about, this is not a Jewish movie about anti-Semitism, but it kind of creates a case to maybe be not so cool with things that the Jewish tradition is dictating, or at least certain, segments of it, where it's like, so.
Not that we're saying the film is anti-Semitic.
I'm not saying it's anti-Semitic.
No. But definitely about like those attitudes, and like, even though this is taking place in the late 19th century,
I think it's 1903.
Is it 1903?
I think there was a title card at the beginning that's like 1903.
Oh, okay. Cause I'm like, yeah, I know we're not getting the anti-Semitism, but like that's not far behind for this geographical area.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was thinking was like, yeah, it's about the attitudes of that time, but also, as pointed out in the synopsis, the Orthodox faith, even by the 1980s. I mean, I don't know. I don't get the newsletters. I'm not up on what's going on in Orthodox Judaism, but I mean, last I checked, we weren't that much further along.
No, and
the lessons of Yentl were not
Well,
by all.
to quote another story of Judaism, tradition.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it throws into question, like, you know, why do we value the traditions when we know they're wrong? Why do we?
And that's
there's
something that Yentl as Anshul brings up a lot in her arguments with Avigdor, her like spirited arguments.
but which also then Avigdor, I think, because I'm spoiler alert, I guess. No, it's been a while.
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah. So the reason why Avigdor has to break off his engagement to Hadass is because Hadass's parents find out that Avigdor's brother killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, there's like sickness in the blood,
right.
And very, you know, yeah, very I mean, of course, old fashioned now, but you know, you think about it and you're like, again, another tradition that why does this make sense? Why should these two people not be in love and, you know, and get married, which, you know,
right.
Happily ever after.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I feel like the movie itself, I had to just kind of submit myself to it and let me go on its little journey and appreciate what Barbra Streisand is going for. I mean, this is a movie that's adapted from a short story, loosely adapted. It's not, you know, extremely faithful to the original text, which I think is,
right.
I should have just read it. It's like 30 pages.
And it was also, it was adapted into a stage play.
Right. Mm-hmm. During the time that Barbara was trying to get this made during that 15-year span, and because she owned the rights to it, they had to ask for her permission to do this stage play. So, read her memoir.
Did not know that.
There's more.
Yeah. Oh, I will. I'll listen to it.
Yeah, listen to it. I mean, to be fair, I listened to the first maybe third of it, and then I skipped around a little bit because I was like, I don't care about the album she did in French. That's not going to help me with this podcast. So like, I was like, I'll skip this chapter.
Quel dommage.
Yeah, and honestly, so okay, listening to her memoir, and we'll come back to it in a second, but it's you can predict some of the things that she's going to say, where it's like, okay, if she talks about a male in her life that she's not related to, she's either going to tell you that they tried to sleep with her, they did sleep with her, or he didn't sleep with her, but then she later remembered, oh yeah, maybe I did sleep with them. And she also does all these things, like, especially towards the beginning, where, you know, she's talking about her childhood, and she was like, and it was at that moment that I decided I would never let a man tell me what to do, you know, like that kind of a thing. And it was,
right.
You know, like the moments in her life that, you know, created the version of her that we all know.
But again, and then that's something that I have here in my notes, is that if you think of her movie career, and I haven't seen every film that she's done, but of what I've seen, she's never played like the housewife. She's never, like, she's, you know, whether, you know, like she is in Yentl, you know, aspiring scholar and rabbi.
Well, I guess in Guilt Trip, she's kind of just a, you know, I don't think she has no job to speak of.
I didn't see Guilt Trip, but like, you know, she's a doctor in Fockers.
Yeah.
She's a psychiatrist.
She's a sex therapist.
She's a sex therapist in Fockers. She's a psychiatrist in Prince of Tides.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's a college professor in Mirror Has Two Faces.
Okay.
Pretty sure. And yeah, like I can't think of.
And she's a Gelfling in Yentl.
She's a Gelfling in Yentl. She was, I want to say, a sex worker in Nuts, but I never saw Nuts.
I know that she has played a sex worker at least once. I can't remember which movie it necessarily was.
I mean, definitely Nuts.
Okay, well, right, but there may have been more
with Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah. In have you ever seen What's Up, Doc?
I have never seen What's Up, Doc.
Peter Bogdanovich film. It's really good.
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
I've got to watch it.
Found myself laughing audibly at many points in that movie, and a lot of things that are like kind of tropey, but the way that they do them is a lot of fun.
Fun screwball.
It's a screwball. Yeah, it's a farce. It's weird, and you know, she plays the kind of wild card that kind of gets things moving in a fun way. And it's Madeline Kahn's first movie,
right? Yes.
Yeah, and Ryan O'Neal is one of the, I guess, the star. It's so much fun. It's a lot of fun.
It looks like a lot of fun.
Austin Pendleton is great.
Oh fuck yeah! I wanted to see. Yeah, there's that one. Oh, is it The Way We Were? I've never seen that one with Redford. Like I haven't. I don't think I've seen her '70s movie. Star Is Born. I haven't seen her.
I tried to watch more, but there's just most of it's unavailable, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, Yentl. I mean, Prince of Tides is really a great movie.
Recently,
I haven't seen it in such
recently.
a long time.
I don't use Facebook much, but I got a notification on my phone, and it was Facebook saying that somebody had posted on Facebook Marketplace the novelization of The Prince of Tides. And I was like, why is this being targeted to me? And also, why are they right that I'm kind of interested in this?
Wait, novelization or just the novel?
The novelization.
Because it's based on a novel.
Dan, I'm telling you, it was the novelization. There have been plenty of movies that are adapted from a novel where there's the movie itself is different enough from the book. And they do a novelization.
I mean, no, I feel like anytime I've bought with the movie cover, it's still the original book, like Cape Fear with the
right. They just changed the cover.
Right. It's still the originally published as The Executioners, same Silence of the Lambs. It's, got the cover on it, but I mean, Prince of Tides. Okay. All right. I'm
looking at it right now.
I believe you.
I'm looking at the notification. The Prince of Tides novelization romance listed for $6.
Who's the listed author?
Dude, I'm just showing you. I'm just looking at a screen grab. Okay. Prince of Tides novelization. Unless that's just how it was listed, and it's actually just the novel.
It's probably by Pat Conroy.
Pat Conroy is the author, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the novel.
Well, I'm just telling you, somebody listed it as the novelization, and that's what popped up. All I'm saying is that it popped up on my thing, and I've never searched for anything having to do with the Prince of Tides,
but never
or novelizations.
Yeah. But just because you've been watching Barbra Streisand films,
this was before that.
Oh, this was. I thought this was like recently.
I mean, it was like a couple months ago.
Oh, well, no, we weren't. We weren't on Y.
The algorithm saw into the future.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never read the novel, but I actually would like to. I've heard it's
I'm sure it's great. It's an awesome story. Yeah. Back to Yentl. I'd say, and okay, I shouldn't say I'd say, because it's like very clearly like this movie. Yes, it takes place in a shtetl and a yeshiva, and it has to do with all of these, people who are Orthodox Jews in Poland and in these shtetls. And but it's a movie about feminism. It is a feminist battle cry, essentially, and to that effect, it is extremely moving. And it's a really appropriate opportunity to, I guess, explore that world, but in that, very 80s lens, or I guess, mid-century on lens
right.
of feminism.
Well, and when you look at like some of the message of the movie, especially when you see Yentl's influence on Hadass, it's about women supporting women.
Yeah.
It's about how, like, you know, women working together makes for, you know, just like that the undeniability of like equality, and, you know, the more and more these, you know, the more and more like when as Hadass adapts, you know, like she breaks away, she marries Avigdor, she and she studies Talmud,
right,
and it like a little bit more openly. And then we also see Yentl and you know, respect to them at the end. Like they don't say she's going to America.
We know
she's. Yeah. Oh, of course she's saying I'm going somewhere where, like, you know, anyone can be anything, and
Canada,
and she's on. Yes. Like she's on the ship, and and you have that shot where they're just pulling out, and I was like, okay, when are we going to see the Statue of Liberty coming out of the haze? But they don't. No. But they don't.
And it's honestly, it's a really beautiful shot. Listen to her memoir; she tells you the whole saga of getting that shot. It's a beautiful shot. It really worked for me. I thought it was pretty great. To be honest, I didn't like the music, and I really could have done without the music, which I know would have probably been her preference, until after the fact, when that was, you know, she was getting so much praise for it. And a lot of people talk about like, oh, it's her inner monologue and and I'm just like, I want to watch Barbra Streisand act in a movie because I don't want to hear her sing, but I still want to support her. And I could see myself enjoying A Star Is Born, maybe because it's like there's the Chris Christopherson of it all.
She's also playing a singer.
Right. Yeah. You know what? I also do want to put a little footnote. The album that she did with Barry Gibb rules. That's all I'll say.
Oh.
But I know that like that music was written by the Bee Gees and Barry Gibb. Like,
what's their duet like? Emotions.
Well, they did a few. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, the whole album is, you know, pretty much the two of them. But yeah, that album totally rocks.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Barbra, like 1970s Barbra.
You know what? I don't like how much vibrato she puts on fucking everything. It's too much. I'm sorry. You know, there's the famous story about how like she's never been to a singing coach, but she went to one once, and she left and never went back. And it's like, maybe if she stayed, she would have been told like, let's turn back to vibrato. I mean, granted, she's like the most famous singer like in history, so what do I know? But like my personal preference, it's too much. It's like, what are you trying to prove? Anyway, so the singing didn't do it for me.
Come on, Barbra. Email us, ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com.
Yeah. Stop cloning your dogs for 10 minutes and email us. I don't know if that comes up in the memoir. I might have not listened to that part, but like,
I don't know that. I don't know about, but
well, she cloned her dog.
I did not know this.
Are you serious? She had this dog, Samantha. She freaking loved this dog. And so she had it cloned like multiple times.
So I'm laughing just because every time I hear the name Samantha, I hear Tony Danza say, Samantha.
Yeah. I don't know who names a dog Samantha, but like,
Angela.
Yeah, she cloned this dog. Like, this is a real thing. Like, it is not a rumor. This is not like Richard Gere and a gerbil. This is like fact.
Okay.
Barbra Streisand cloned her dog.
Hey, I mean, she's like I said, she doesn't need to do the movies.
Yeah. No. She's fine.
She's doing fine. Barbara's doing fine.
So anyway, to
come
back to the feminist, focus of this movie. Also, I'd say that there's a lot to look at it from, I guess, a more current perspective as we all are societally more conscious of the gender spectrum and the experience of people who, I don't know, the gender that they're born into isn't right for them. And perhaps there's a case to be made for Yentl and wanting to experience what men are traditionally only allowed to experience. I'm not saying that there's I'm not saying that it's like a trans or non-binary allegory or anything, but it's like, it's hard to watch something like this and not think about how, I mean, it's not just cutting your hair and putting on men's clothing. It's,
I mean, it would actually be problematic if this was any type of trans allegory, because it would be basically saying that, like, oh, well, yes, she's a man. Of course she's driven to learn. And like, yes, if she's really a man, I feel like it's not progressively congruous.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think about like how Yentl, if anybody aside from us was thinking about this on a larger scale, and like the, conservatives, watching it and getting all up in arms and like it becoming a big thing. And, Trump's at rallies being like, the late great Avigdor, all he wanted to do was study the Talmud. And then there's Yentl. Anshel comes along. Have you heard of this? Like, I can see how this could become like,
says her name's Anshel, can use the bathrooms.
Yeah.
They use the same bathroom.
Amy Irving, beautiful. She's so beautiful. Have you seen her? She's beautiful. And they fooled her.
Poor Amy Irving.
Yentl, this nasty woman. I can't do a Trump impression, but
I don't want you to. I don't want to. Like, I'm like, I honestly, like, I feel like I could, but I don't want to. I don't want to hear anything close to that voice coming out of my mouth. And I don't want to hear it coming out of yours. So, no.
Yeah, but no,
fuck that guy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Absolutely. But
anyway, back to Yentl.
But like, of course, there were movies where women had to, for one reason or another, pose as men, which is much different in film history than men posing as women. There's there are just connotations that come along with a man posing as a woman that
it's always comedic.
It's most always comedic. There are exceptions, but also, in
the fictional, when it's a woman, when it's a story like this, it's usually more dramatic, and it has to do with, it's commentary on society. Whereas when it's men dressing as women, it's whether it's Some Like It Hot or sorority boys.
Well, yeah, it's when a man is dressing as a woman in movies like this, it is typically about trying to pull one over on somebody, to do it in a way. But when it's, and typically, not always, but if it's a woman who isn't, trans,
right,
a woman who is posing as a man, it's usually done in a way because men have the ability to access things that women don't, and it's entering into a different world in order to get a better understanding. Like a few years after this, you have like just one of the guys, and it's not that there's a direct line between them, but it's like, she's writing an article, and the only way that she can do it is by
she has to pose as a man. Yeah. And of course
they have the same ending, and
not
the boat, but the reveal.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it also, goes back again to a lot of like Shakespeare and
very Shakespearean.
Night. Yeah. So, and not uncommon, but right. We are talking about when a cisgender woman poses as a man for, equality.
Right. Yeah. To gain
And for that
access to
access.
something that they would
Yeah.
be prohibited to otherwise.
Yeah. The Whoopi Goldberg film, The Associate.
Oh, The Associate. Oh, that reminds me. If
With
you all
Diane
want to hear
Wiest.
me talk about the movie Eddie from 1996 on a podcast, I'm on one of the most recent episodes of Rediscovered Movies, hosted by Namfanello Minoy. It was a lot of fun. We recorded it a long time ago. And
awesome.
Yeah, she had me on to talk about Eddie, Whoopi Goldberg basketball movie.
Coach, the fan who becomes like the coach of the
Exactly.
Knicks.
Yeah.
Right.
And to study up for that one, I also watched The Associate. I'm so sorry, Dan, but 2 movies in which Donald Trump has a cameo.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
yeah.
in Eddie, the whole joke of him being in it is that he is a liar. And it's like him taking credit for Eddie being chosen as the coach of the Knicks, and where we all know it's a lie. So the joke that he's in on is that he's a liar. Anyway,
Yeah.
I digress.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, I digress ever. Anyway.
So, all right. I think if there's anything else to add before we get on to how we revive Yentl.
Yeah, Dan, this is somebody's favorite movie. How would you ruin their childhood?
Oh, how would I ruin their childhood? I mean, I would ruin their childhood with a remake, but I wouldn't remake it. If I was like, I feel like a good 4K, because if people who are going to be into this movie, they want the songs and they want Barbra Streisand's voice. And I was listening to it and I was like, I imagine if I was Uncle Dennis and it was I'd go to an IMAX theater and it's 4K sound and you're just getting Barbara, just the voice and you're seeing that beautiful picture, which I mean, the cinematography, it must look
beautiful.
good. And this, with the sound, if you like her singing, it's just going to be incredible. I wouldn't buy you a ticket, but I think that would be...
I'd go see Yentl in IMAX. Are you kidding me?
Would you? Okay, so yeah, I mean, because
it would be an event.
It would be an event. I mean, and I could also see Yentl. I could see it becoming no, not really. I was I had a moment where I was kind of picturing a Rocky Horror-ish type thing, where you have an Avigdor up there, during the skinny dippy scene.
When Hadass drops the meatball on the table, you throw meatballs at the screen or something.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, that's what I would want to do. Yeah. No, but I think just giving it that recognition, and you could re-release it, or you could, have screenings at a time. I don't know, there are times around the year when you could do it. Pride month, probably do a whole thing for it. But I don't know what else. Do you adapt the musical for Broadway? It doesn't really feel like it makes sense.
There have been other stage adaptations. I don't know if they've been musicals. I think they mostly do what was done, before, on stage before Yentl was produced. But
I haven't seen anything about a musical adaptation for Broadway, and I don't. No, it would get, the same people who would go see the movie would be the people interested in going to see it on Broadway, except that you would need to go to Broadway to see it. And I don't see a Broadway version of Yentl being, I just don't see it being successful in the current theater landscape on Broadway. And I feel like there are aspects of it that are too dated. I mean, maybe there's a way that you could rework it, but why? I feel like it it kind of is what it is, and it has its legacy in part because of Barbra Streisand.
Right.
She directed it, and her performance, and so, I mean, Papa, Can You Hear Me? That's like a standard, and
right. Yeah.
So
it's such a popular standard. They retooled it as "Do you want to build a snowman?" in Frozen.
Oh my God! Yes, you're right. Yes, absolutely.
Just that classic melody.
It really is.
Yeah,
it really is. So, so that's what I would do with this: put it on a big screen, give the audio that boost, and really let Barbara's buttery voice just like pour into the ears of the audience. It's like butter. What would you do?
Well, it is tricky. I'd say aside from giving it the AI treatment to reduce the vibrato, and otherwise keep it completely the same, it's tough. It's a tough one because, there's no sense in giving it any kind of refresh because it needs to take place at the turn of the century, in Poland at a shtetl. Like, yes, you can do maybe a revised version of it, but not calling it Yentl. Changing up the character names and doing a version that maybe is still about the Jewish experience, but setting it in a contemporary time in a different place. I mean, maybe it is Brooklyn. Maybe not in a shtetl, in one of these Orthodox Jewish communities that, you go 2 blocks away and it's suddenly, a very different world in New York. And then,
and what you're describing is current day. Imagine you could set it in the early 80s.
You could set it in the early 80s, sure.
I mean, set it set it further, a little, if you don't have to set it that far back in that community to be able to believably do this story.
Yeah.
So,
and honestly, I mean, when you're focusing,
someone sees Yentl and they're inspired and they do a Yentl.
They do a Yentl. I'm going to do a
Yentl. They do. I've seen the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know about the current rules for the Orthodox or Hasidic communities, and how, I mean, yes, I know that there is a very stark division of what men and women can do. And I don't want to make any assumptions and say that like something like this could easily be paralleled with what's going on now. But perhaps there is an element of the Orthodox Jewish experience or Hasidic Jewish experience that would translate over, that would make sense. Like maybe it isn't studying to become a rabbi. Maybe it's studying to become a DJ. I don't know. But like there's got to be something that would translate over and make sense for whether it's, modern day or if it's in the 80s or something else. But
well, and actually, John, what you're kind of describing now is the jazz singer.
Yeah.
Where which the Neil Diamond version doesn't come out too long before this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's actually really interesting because the jazz singer, but I would say the jazz singer has more to do. The jazz singer, it's funny. It's almost like it could be like it could take place in the same universe because it starts off in New York in the 1970s with Neil Diamond and his father, Laurence Olivier, who's like older, like very, it's a similar type thing. But Neil Diamond's character is also kind of like pushing away his
Papa,
Judaism.
Can you hear me?
I mean, yeah, like it kind of is. I'm telling you, like, check out the jazz singer.
Come on, yeah, Papa. Sorry,
I mean,
I derailed you a little bit.
Well, he comes in. He comes in because his father is a cantor, and his father usually does I forget, like on Yom Kippur, I forget which the name of the prayer, but it's like just one of the most really important ones to chant. And like when his father gets sick does
he rock star it?
Yes.
Does he get plucked from the crowd to come sing the lead part?
Well, no, he comes back to the synagogue because that he's like left to go be a rock star.
I've never seen it. So
he goes, I don't get, like, it's awesome. He like,
well,
like,
you know
watch
what?
It's friggin',
you know what, Dan?
Great,
I gotta
and terrible
say,
at the same time.
There aren't a whole hell of a lot of movies that begin with J, and we're gonna need one more as we go back down the alphabet. So we may be catching up with this one.
Would love to, but yeah, he comes in like during the Yom Kippur services, and he gets up to do the prayer, and it's awesome because he's like, imagine Neil Diamond as your cantor.
So sequin tops and. I'm picturing the full Neil Diamond.
All right, maybe your expectations are set a little too high. So just the voice,
yeah.
But I think like the jazz singer is definitely less about, like, this Yentl is a lot more about equality,
right?
And the jazz singer is much more about like maintaining your identity,
right?
Regardless of peer pressure.
Yeah. And as we said before, tradition.
Yes.
Well,
anyway,
if all y'all out there have ideas for ways that you would want to revisit Yentl, email us ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. Like we were just saying, we are going up and down the alphabet in this third season of the show. Apologies to everybody who might have been waiting for this Yentl episode to come out, and it took us a little while. We've both been very, very busy lately, and so it's been difficult to organize these recordings. Hopefully we'll get back on a good pattern soon. And our next one might take a minute too, so just be patient with us. But yeah, email us ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com, subscribe to the show, tell your friends about it. We really love the support. Comment on YouTube, where you can watch everything. So yeah, this is our first Y episode, and then we're going to do Z and then Y and then X. And, so, Dan, what are we doing for our first Z episode?
Well, our first Z episode will start with Z and end with Z, and there's an R dot in the middle because it's 1974's Zardoz, starring Sean Connery and Charlotte Rampling, written and directed by John Boorman.
Yeah, Deliverance's John Boorman.
Yes, Exorcist 2's John
Boorman. That's correct.
I mean, I feel like that.
Coming up, this is a real shot chaser series going from Yentl to Zardoz. So definitely, if you have the ability to seek this one out and watch it, if you haven't seen it, you gotta watch this one. This is a can't miss.
Can't wait.
Rent it, buy it, whatever you gotta do. Yeah,
I'm so excited for Zardoz.
Yeah. Well, Dan, as you are on a ship heading to the new world, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.